Commission to order at 9 o'clock on October 4th. And Clerk Meadows, would you please call the roll?
Good morning. Commissioner Orth,
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Here.
Commissioner Ward,
Here.
Commissioner Frohnberger, Commissioner Frohnberger, Commissioner Gonzalez,
Present.
Commissioner McGorty,
Here.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Here.
Commissioner Bazzani,
Here.
Commissioner Winkle,
Here.
Commissioner Roden,
Here.
Commissioner Haschak. Thank you, Chair. I believe we have a quorum, and staff members present include Executive Officer Hinman, Analyst Filer, and Legal Counsel Marcia Birch, sitting in for Mr. Scott Brown. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chair, we'd also like to recognize Clerk Meadows at this time too.
Thank you for the roll call, Clerk Meadows. We are meeting today due to Governor Newsom's orders. On September 16th, he signed AB 361. The requirements of AB 361 will be addressed under item 3A today. Meeting participation. To provide comments, please raise your hand using the Zoom function, the hand function in Zoom. For members using the telephone option, please use the raise hand feature by pressing *9 and to unmute with *6. Comments today have a 3-minute time limit unless we allow it to go over. That will be up to me, I guess. With that, we move to public expression. Any of the public may raise their hand, again, using the Zoom function. EO Hinman, do we have members of the public wishing to address the commission this morning?
We do have members of the public in the meeting today. I do not see any hands raised. And I would like to note for the record that Commissioner Frohnberger has joined us.
Yes, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to 3A, other business. And today I'll turn it over to EO Hinman for addressing the needs of passing a resolution this morning to meet the requirements of Assembly Bill 361.
Thank you, Chair Orth. Since the governor's March 2020 declaration of a state of emergency due to COVID, LAFCO meetings have been held remotely. The modified Brown Act requirements have been continued through a series of executive orders that expired on September 30th. In advance of that deadline, on September 16th, the governor signed AB 361 that provides for the continued utilization of remote meetings under a modified process. Agencies must now adopt a resolution making findings, including that the state of emergency remains active and that there are ongoing direct impacts affecting the ability of the agency to meet safely in person. The legislation also requires that the resolution be renewed every 30 days, so we'll have that on our agenda moving forward. We have worked with our legal counsel and recommend the draft resolution on page 9 of the agenda packet for the commission's consideration so that we may continue to meet remotely.
Thank you for that. The recommended action is to adopt resolution 2021-22-05. Are there any members of the public wishing to make comments on this item? Please raise your hand.
I'll move the recommended action. Mulhern.
Thank
Second
you.
it.
Motion made. And who seconded?
McGorty.
Thank you. Are there any commissioner comments? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ward. You're muted. Commissioner Ward,
the resolution states that it's good for 30 days. After 30 days, we have to come up with a new resolution. Is that the way I read it?
That's correct. And we do have our legal counsel, Marcia Birch, if there's specific questions about AB 361, but our understanding at this time is that it will have to be renewed every 30 days.
So based on,
Comment.
based on the governor's actions over the last several months, maybe a year, this is probably going to go on for several more months. So we're going to continually do a resolution every month. Is that the plan? Is that what we have to do?
That's correct. The AB 361 requires reapproval every 30 days.
And this is, by the way, is true for all public agencies that are under the Brown Act. Okay, we'll go to Commissioner Gonzalez and then Ignacio.
Yeah, question. In the case where we've sometimes skipped a meeting, how will that work? I guess this is a question for council.
Unfortunately, there will have to be a special meeting. It can be brief. It would be, this one topic on the agenda, just to reapprove that every 30 days.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Ignacio.
Just to follow up on both Jerry's comments about that. When reading the bill, there's nothing saying we can't forecast 30 days, a month, or even 2 months in advance. And we're able to rescind that by vote as well. So if we do a vote at our meetings for the following meeting or 2 meetings, 30 days, we just have to renew that at a 30-day time cycle. And I would appreciate Marcia Birch's impression on that concept.
Well, we definitely talked about the possibility of trying to do a forward-looking, say, for a 3 to 4 month period, that you could rescind at some point if you chose not to continue. Based upon the language of the bill, in my view, it doesn't really provide for that as an option. And I don't know, I have not looked at the legislative history. I suspect there was some concern that, that the true current state of emergency wouldn't be evaluated on a regular basis. And there would just be kind of these blanket approvals going forward without that close look every 30 days. And we can certainly talk more with Scott when he gets back about whether or not he thinks we can read that into the bill. Also, every LAFCO in the state is now looking at this and going, is this really what we have to do every 30 days? I know that some of the executive officers have just had, planning a special meeting to specifically approve this. And maybe that's on the conservative side, just to be safe in interpreting the bill. And so, this will evolve a bit. I would say for now, to be on the safe side, to reapprove it every 30 days.
Are there any more commission? Yes, go ahead, Scott.
So following based on your recommendations, we vote on the following 30 days, and then we come back on a 31-day month, not in compliance, and vote late for another 30 days. Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm suggesting that if there were more than 30 days between meetings, that you would have a special meeting, presumably the week before, to renew the resolution.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And as we all know, legislation isn't always perfect, and that is a good example of that.
Yeah.
We have a motion before the commissioner. Are there any further comments from commissioners? Then go ahead, Clerk Meadows, and call the roll.
Okay, Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes,
Thank you.
And
The
thank
motion
you.
passes unanimously.
and thus we can move on. The next item is number 4, our consent calendar. Are there any questions or need to pull items by commissioners today? Yes, Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple comments. First of all, the minutes. It was 8 pages long. I just wanted to commend our clerk. They were well done. It's one of the best minutes I've ever read from a district or a jurisdiction. She covered all the points really well. So very seldom do you see minutes from other areas or other jurisdictions so concise. So thank you. Appreciate that. Regarding the claims, it's noted in the basic service summary that you respond to public records, and you did state that you did, but there was no cost involved in that. Did you have any requests for public records?
We did. We had a request for public records that started last month, and we finished it up in the month of September.
Did you not put any time or effort into that? As far, you have a line item in your budget now for that, at least on your billing.
We do. I did not separate it out because it was, but not a requirement, but we do have that line item, and I can make that more clear in the invoice moving forward.
It just seems to me that we're getting a lot of those requests, and I know it's costing you money. I'd like to know over time what it does cost. So that's the reason I bring it up. Also, there was a $10 late charge on our billing for the Comcast, I think it was. You went ahead and paid it in advance, but I assume that $10 will come off on a future billing.
Yes, that's correct. They have taken that off for our next bill.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then you reissued a check to Commissioner Winkle for his check that was not deposited. Did he return that check to you?
The answer is no, I couldn't find it.
Okay. Good. All right, that's all I had, Chair. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made. Is there a second to approve the consent calendar?
Fromberger seconds.
Okay, we have a second. Any further questions by commissioners? Then go ahead. Any public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward with the roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
thank you, Commission. With that, we move to our main public action items. This is a public hearing item 5A, the Ukiah Valley Fire District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update and UVFD Fire Services Annexation and Fire District Sphere Amendment. And this is file number A 2021-02. We have a proof of publication for this public hearing. And with that, I'll open the public hearing at 9:13 a.m. and open first to public comments or questions. And then we'll move on to Uma. Go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Orth. I'm going to turn this item over to our analyst, Larkin Filer, to do a presentation, but I would like to start by acknowledging that this was a huge team effort to get this proposal before the commission on such a tight timeline. I'll take a moment to recognize a few people. Doug Hutchison is the fire chief for Ukiah Valley Fire District, and Craig Schlatter is the community development director for the city of Ukiah. Doug and Craig met regularly with us, even weekly, the past couple of months to coordinate on the application, and they've been very responsive to our information needs and review of documents as needed. Also, the tax share negotiation agreement process is a county-driven process that culminates in a resolution by the Board of Supervisors and affected agencies. The resolutions of agreement are required before we can take the project to public hearing with the commission. And that process can be a quite labor-intensive and lengthy process. And I understand the county departments involved had a number of large ongoing projects that complicated the process even further. So we'd like to take a moment just to thank the county assessor, Katrina Bartolome, and the interim auditor, Shanice Cubison, and their staff for their work under very difficult circumstances. And we'd also like to acknowledge the county executive officer, Carmel Angelo, and the county council, Christian Curtis, for their efforts in coordinating the process. And also to thank the Board of Supervisors Tax Share Ad Hoc Committee, specifically Commissioner Mulhern and her supervisorial role, who facilitated getting the item to the board for adoption on September 28th. And with that, I'll turn it over to Larkin, who will present the proposal.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larkin.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I am sharing my screen. And for some reason, give me just one moment.
Larkin, we can see the screen, but we cannot hear you.
There we go. I apologize. I muted myself. Okay, so this is a public hearing item related to the Ukiah Valley Fire District. This is a combined public hearing to consider public testimony and proposed adoption of both a study and a proposed change of organization, which starts on page 27 of your packet. And as you can see in the slide, the study is the Ukiah Valley Fire District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update. And the proposed change of organization is the Ukiah Valley Fire District proposal to annex the Ukiah city limits for fire services and an SOI amendment to add the proposed annexation area to the Ukiah Valley Fire District SOI. The district boundary includes the greater Ukiah Valley area, as you can see on this slide, the map on the left-hand side. It's approximately 80 square miles in size, and adjacent fire providers include the city of Ukiah to the west, the Redwood Valley Capella Fire District to the north, Hopland Fire Protection District to the south, and the district is primarily within the state responsibility area with small areas of the federal responsibility area. This slide shows the overlap area between the district and the city of Ukiah in the south and in the eastern portion of the city limits. As background, the Ukiah Valley Fire District was formed in 1947. It is governed by Fire Protection District law. It is considered a single service provider and provides all risk fire and emergency services. And the district has mutual aid agreements with the city of Ukiah, Redwood Valley Calpella, Hopland, Little Lake, and Potter Valley Fire Agencies, and CAL FIRE. The district and the city of Ukiah have an agreement for combined fire services known as the Ukiah Valley Fire Authority. Although the district and city have not legally consolidated their entities, for operational purposes, they function as one entity. Therefore, many of the details for district activities include fire authority Fire Authority operations. As background, the Fire Authority is based on a 2017 joint powers agreement between the district and the city of Ukiah. It is called the Agreement for Shared Management of Fire Departments, and it provides terms for jointly managing, equipping, maintaining, and operating an all-risk fire, medical, and emergency services in the district and city boundaries. And the JPA was formed to maximize the use of existing resources, create cost containment opportunities, reduce duplication, maintain local control, and continue to deliver high-quality services. The JPA did not create a separate legal entity. Each agency provides direction to a shared fire chief on services and desired special projects. There is a fire executive committee that includes 2 members of the city council and 2 members of the district board of directors that collaborate on direction from respective agencies to avoid conflicting guidance and priorities. The district and city adopt an annual combined operations budget, and general operating costs of the fire authority are generally split between the agencies at a 50-50 share of cost. There is a 2020 amended JPA, which would be effective upon district annexation of the city of Ukiah. This provides a different method for apportioning costs between the agencies. It establishes higher conditions for termination to promote longevity. It requires that both parties must agree to terminate the agreement, which will not affect the continued provision of services. And many of the amended JPA terms and conditions are relevant to consideration of the proposed SOI amendment and annexation. And it's also important to note that in general, agreements for the joint provision of municipal services are not regulated by LAFCO. This is a slide showing the organizational chart for the fire authority. It includes 1 fire chief, 3 battalion chiefs, 6 captains, 6 engineers, and 3 firefighters. Regarding fire authority staffing, the authority is currently staffed by 19 paid firefighters, 1 administrative secretary, and 15 volunteer firefighters that operate from 4 fire stations, 2 staffed with career personnel, and volunteer firefighters primarily work out of the city central fire station. Minimum daily on-duty staffing level is 5 full-time firefighters consisting of 2 two-person crews and a battalion chief. There is a projected staffing increase of 10 employees, including 4 firefighters and 6 ambulance operators post-annexation. And this slide shows pictures of fire authority response to vegetation fire incidents. The fire authority responds to over 3,700 calls per year, with roughly 1,200 within the district and 2,500 within the city. The majority of service calls are emergency medical response at approximately 70%. The average response times are measured in 6 zones, and the average response times range from 8 to 10 minutes in the district zones and 5 to 6 minutes in the city zones. The district has an ISO rating of 4 to 4X, and the city has an ISO rating of 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the highest. The fire authority has a combined 5-year capital improvement plan in the budget and a fleet replacement plan to address capital expenditures and priorities. And this slide shows pictures of fire authority response to structure fire incidents. In regard to district finances, the district generally operates at a net loss under the 50-50 share of cost and relies on reserves and city contributions. There is a repayment of city interagency loans, which are scheduled in fiscal year 2023-24 at a 0% interest. The proposed annexation involves extending the district parcel taxes over the city of Ukiah city limits. And the annexation projected revenue increase is estimated at $850,000 to $1 million annually, with an annual net gain of approximately $500,000 to rebuild district reserves. And this is a slide showing pictures of medical and vehicle collision response. Some of the key municipal service review and sphere of influence update determinations include: the district provides critical fire and emergency services that will continue to be needed within the area. The district has adequate personnel, facilities, and equipment to meet current and future demands for public services through the fire authority. Under the fire authority, there is no redundancy in services provided in the district and city service areas. And the functional consolidation of district and city fire services has resulted in better staffing and performance levels for the Ukiah Valley area overall. And this slide shows pictures of fire authority strike team assignments. And these can occur throughout the state. In regard to the proposed annexation, file number A 2021-02, the district proposed annexation of the Ukiah city limits for fire services and related SOI amendment includes support from the city of Ukiah through a resolution of support adopted by the city council. Annexation is intended to equalize the tax structure and government representation model for district and city areas. In the short term, the annexation is anticipated to maintain existing levels of service provided by the same shared personnel using the same shared facilities and equipment under the same JPA service delivery model. Annexation is also proposed to ensure long-term provision of critical services and to lead to an improved level of service. The summary of factors for consideration required by LAFCO law is included on page 32 of your packet. In addition, there is additional information in the resolution of the application on page 111 of your packet, within the plan for services on page 124 in your packet, and in the 2020 amended JPA on page 139 within your packet. And this slide shows pictures of responses to local fire incidents. And of note, on the left-hand side is the recent Hopkins fire. The commission held a workshop on September 13th to hear public comments and provide direction on revisions to the district's draft municipal service review and sphere of influence study to prepare for this public hearing item. LAFCO staff met with a concerned citizen after the MSR SOI workshop, and a summary of verbal comments received has been prepared, which is on page 28 of your packet. These comments have been addressed in the MSR SOI study where appropriate. And in addition, staff also added the TOT campground and RV parks tax to table 2.6 special revenues as requested by the commission on page 64. The district and city also provided responses to key comments that were received on page 28 and 29 of the packet. Additional written public comments specific to the annexation proposal were received from MedStar and Mr. Farr, and these public comments were provided to the commission and posted on the LAFCO website prior to the meeting. In regard to corrections, Staff issued a memo of corrections, which list 7 corrections to the packet for this public hearing item, which was distributed prior to the meeting and posted on the website. These changes, some of the key language changes include an updated condition in the resolution regarding City 201 rights as requested by the applicant on page 156. And additional language in the resolution regarding conducting authority proceedings. And you can see the specific language on these 2 more significant language changes on this slide. In addition, there was a recommended correction to expand the discussion of factors for consideration on page 34 of the packet, and to add the reference to this code section to the resolution on page 155 of the packet. In addition, we are requesting to remove indemnification language from the resolution on page 156 of the packet, and this is in consultation with our legal counsel. And then there's also 2 minor changes addressed in the corrections memo. One is a word change from detachment to annexation in the resolution, and adding the area of interest designation language in the study. There are 3 staff recommendations on page 27 of the packet for commission consideration, and they generally include number 1, find the Ukiah Valley Fire District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update, Fire Services Annexation and Sphere Amendment exempt from CEQA. 2, adopt a resolution to approve the district MSR SOI update, expand the district's SOI to include the Ukiah city limits and add 2 areas of interest. And 3, adopt a resolution to conditionally approve the proposed district annexation of the Ukiah city limits for fire services. And the specific language of these recommendations is shown on this slide. That concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions, and I also want to note that the applicant is present to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Larkin. And with that, we'll open. We are in a public hearing, so we'll go to Uma first to note the received public comments.
Other than the comments we've received and noted in the presentation, nothing else has been received to date.
Thank you. We'll go to commissioner questions and comments, and I see Glenn, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I'm not able to hear.
Glenn was muted. Can
Yeah,
you hear me?
I'm not muted now. Hopefully you can hear me. So thank you. So the first question I have.
I do apologize. I'm not sure if there's a technical difficulty on my end, that I have lost audio. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a moment.
Okay, we'll pause while Larkin is trying to readjust.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Larkin, you just muted yourself, and that's okay. Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
So I'm curious how CAL FIRE fits into this. The last time I had a fire in my place, CAL FIRE were the first ones here. That was during the river fire. And, you know, as the last person in the Ukiah Valley Fire District, what are the implications for me? What changes? Anything? Can I expect the same level of service, or better, worse, or what?
Thank you for the question. Doug, go ahead and respond.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner McGurty, that's an excellent question. As a current resident of the district, nothing changes for you as far as your taxation or anything else. Will you see better service? In some ways, I believe we can honestly say yes, because one of the things that this annexation will allow us to do is provide better staffing on our engine companies. Rather than having 2 people on an engine company, we'll have 3, which studies show get water on fires faster. They don't require both companies to go to certain calls because they're adequately staffed. So really for you, On the surface, nothing changes. It's unfortunate that, as you say, you're kind of the last person in the district, so that means you're the farthest from our station. We're not going to move any stations as a result of this action, but you will see potentially better staffing on your fire companies, which is going to result in lower fire losses.
And how does CAL FIRE fit into the picture? We have 2 CAL FIRE stations inside of the district.
I'm going to go ahead and recognize CAL FIRE, who has their hand raised. They can go ahead and answer that question as well. CAL FIRE, your hand is raised. Please identify yourself and come on into the meeting. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Brandon Gunn, Division Chief with CAL FIRE. My hand was raised for a public comment when the time is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Doug, go ahead and answer the question.
Okay, so to answer the second part of Commissioner McGorty's question, we have an automatic aid agreement with CAL FIRE for any type of fire within the SRA or the LRA in the fire district, so the state responsibility area or the local responsibility area. Both agencies will respond under a unified command structure. Generally speaking, it kind of comes down to whose ground it is. If it's LRA, the fire authority will retain command and control. If it's SRA, CAL FIRE takes over command and control. But we all respond together to give extra staffing and equipment so that we can, snuff out fires as quickly as possible.
And I have to say that the response in the 1st district this year has been extraordinary because I've seen each of the 3 fires that we've had. The last one was the worst, but you can't blame a lack of response for the damage that occurred. It was incredible how quick everybody was on the scene and how well coordinated with the Sheriff's Department, and really a all hands on deck kind of experience. And my hat's off to all of you guys. You work really, really hard.
Thank you, Glenn. With that, we're going to go to public comment by CAL FIRE. This is a public hearing, and as members of the public come into the meeting and raise their hand, I will recognize them. So CAL FIRE, it's an appropriate time for your public comment.
Good morning. This is Brandon Gunn again, Division Chief with CAL FIRE. Within the recent shadow of the Hopkins fire, CAL FIRE is vigorously opposed to any new construction in high fire severity zones. If this area is annexed, we want to ensure that work in this area will fall under Public Resources Code 4127, which will keep this area in the local responsibility area. Thank you for your time.
Okay, further comments and questions by commissioners or members of the public? Matt, I recognize you, Commissioner Farnberger.
Thank you very much. This is for Chief Hutchison. So you stated that in some ways that they can expect potentially better services. The other side of that coin is they can expect less services in other ways. Is that because that's what I heard when you said that?
No, service levels are not going to change. Our staffing levels are what they are. So having better staffed companies, we're actually able to be more efficient. One of the issues we have in the Ukiah Valley, throughout the Ukiah Valley, whether this action goes or not, is right now we're running about a 35% overlapping call rate, which is to be expected when you have multiple stations. I mean, having overlapping calls isn't that big of an issue with 2 stations being out on 2 different calls. What creates issues for us is when both companies, for instance, have to go to a motor vehicle accident or a CPR call because there's only 2 people on that company. By putting a 3rd person on that company, you increase the efficiency. And then like on the CPR call, coupled with the local ambulance provider, we have enough people to efficiently handle that call and we don't have to deplete our resources. So we would actually see an increase by keeping that 2nd company in service for that next call for everyone.
So, and a follow-up to that is prior to the the JPA between the city and the fire district, the city had 15 line staff and 5+ overhead. The district carried about 1/3 of that, which actually equates to a higher number than what you're talking about even after this tax sharing agreement goes through. Can you comment on how that continues to make a good sense for both the city and the district.
Well, I think the best way to answer your question is we've achieved some efficiency here. So the biggest thing is we don't have two different command staffs. The district was not running as many firefighters per shift as the city. So we're able to actually kind of put more boots on the ground and not duplicate fire chiefs and fire marshals and things like that, and serve the combined area more efficiently.
Well, couldn't that just be done with a shared administration rather than in a shared entire district?
It could be, but the cost of the pure personnel has to be shared between both agencies. That's where the biggest cost comes from.
Okay, and I do have a couple more questions, but go ahead and pass on to somebody else for the time being.
Yes, Mari, I recognize you, Commissioner Mari.
Thank you, Commissioner Tony. I just have a quick comment, which is that I thought that Larkin Feller made a really beautiful summary presentation, really clear and concise. And I thought that the analysis by staff was great. And I think this is, a great action that hopefully we will, or actions that we'll adopt later on today. So it's just a comment of praising the work done by staff, and that this whole effort is happening expeditiously. So thanks.
Thank you for that comment. And indeed, I do believe that this has been a fairly rapid process. It will have, of course, a property owner notice and protest hearing to follow. So the public will weigh in through that process, as well as this public hearing. This is our second public hearing. Commissioner Gonzalez.
I guess my question is to either staff or Doug. Could you give me a brief summary as far as the district, because I know there's obviously the district encompasses the city, but currently tax-wise, the special taxes, who will end up paying more when it's all said and done? I mean, can you just give me a brief summary?
Actually, I think they're going to be kind of roughly equal, since they're not based on property values. They're based on the actual what's on the ground. And that's why, unfortunately, right now, the estimate is kind of wide range and stuff. It's very difficult to go out and pin all of these numbers down in a short period of time, because there's a lot of nuances to the way that the special taxes are applied. So, for instance, a house would normally be 2 benefit units or pay $120 a year for fire protection. But if that house is actually an office or being used for some other business, it's going to get classified different and going to pay a different amount of benefit units per year. So until that work is done, it's hard to really pin down what the total cost is going to be. The fact that the city is far more densely populated, has a lot more apartment buildings and such, they may end up paying slightly more than the district residents. As far as, rate wise, they're not going to pay any more. But if you total up collection within one jurisdiction versus another jurisdiction, they're probably still going to be fairly close, but there may be some tip one way or the other. We haven't been able to calculate that fully yet, though.
Thank you.
Okay, looking for further commissioner or public comment. Commissioner Ward, please.
Thank you, Tony. My question, I guess, is to the chief, but maybe to staff, but I'm a little concerned about MedStar. The letter from them seems like this annexation will maybe allow more emergency medical services. How's that play into MedStar's ability to continue?
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, I can take that one on. I guess the biggest issue is, what happens to MedStar after this annexation. This annexation has nothing to do with MedStar. I realized that there was an attempt in the letter to make it about that. This annexation does not contemplate any of those actions whatsoever. On the flip side, I will tell you in all honesty that the fire authority has attempted to work with MedStar and seek meetings with them on multiple occasions to discuss collaborative approaches. And to say that those meetings have been unsuccessful would be an understatement. So, we're moving forward to provide the best fire protection to the community that we can. The annexation is not really part of that plan.
Well, the presentation to us was that you may be hiring up to 6 more people for emergency medical services. Would that include a ambulance service?
That is a city enterprise. That is not part of the general fund. So we are exploring that, and I'll tell you why. Because as of today, 1,092 times MedStar has had 1 or fewer ambulances available in the county. That's not my numbers. Those are the numbers that are put out by the CAL FIRE ECC at Howard Forest. We get notified whenever they go to low ambulance numbers. So we see an impact to that when they have no units available or the units coming from Willits, that we have a choice if we can let that patient wait for the ambulance to come from Willits, or we can downstaff a fire engine to take one of our reserve ambulances and take that patient to the hospital, which is what we choose to do within our response area. So yes, we have explored the idea of putting up an additional ambulance to help stabilize the system. And it's not just 911 calls, because when they get to low levels, they are no longer able to take transfers out of the local hospital. So when Howard Memorial or Coast Hospitals needs a patient transferred, if they're at low levels, they can't take that patient out to get them to the higher level of care. So, and that's not a part of the business that we would be interested in getting in whatsoever. But I just want to come back to the fact that the annexation has nothing to do with ambulance service.
Okay, thank you, Chief. The next question is who will be on the new board after the annexation? What's the makeup of that board?
The fire district board will remain the same until the next election cycle.
Okay, there'll be 5 members on that board.
Yes, sir.
Two from the city, 2 from the district, and where would be the 5th?
Currently, all of the board members reside outside city limits in the fire district. So they have not yet had the discussion, since obviously the city isn't part of that area yet, about either going to zones or allowing city residents to be on the board.
Okay, thank you. This is for staff. What happens to the JPA agreement if this annexation goes through?
So the JPA agreement that's currently in place would be replaced by the 2020 amended JPA agreement, which has different terms and actually more restrictive, I would say, from the context of the ability of either agency to terminate the overall arrangement. So one of the conditions of approval that is included in the resolution before your commission includes effective implementation of that 2020 amended JPA, because we really want to ensure that those new terms and conditions come into play.
Okay, so it's understood that LAFCO doesn't have any oversight for JPAs. What will be looking at the next 5-year district MSR, the new district? What would we be looking at again? And how does it play into the JPA in the future, since we don't have any oversight on it?
That is a really good question. So while we don't have regulatory authority over JPA agreements, JPAs are required to submit their agreements to LAFCO. We post those on our website. So if there are any future changes to the agreement, we will get a copy of those and post them on our website for public transparency. In addition, so JPAs are kind of, they're intended to improve services and provide more efficient and effective delivery of services, which is something that LAFCO encourages. One of the things that we do in the context of the MSR and SOI process is that while we are just focusing on a particular participating agency, like in this case, the Ukiah Valley Fire District, we included a significant amount of data and analysis regarding that joint provision of services. So we will continue to include that in our analysis going forward. And, you know, I would imagine that if updates are needed over the years, I would imagine the applicants would be happy to come back before the commission, even before that 5-year time frame, to address additional questions or, you know, discuss how this process is evolving over time.
Thank you. Last question. What if we approve the MSR SOI but not the annexation? What happens then? Seems like there's still a lot of questions involved in the as the chief said, the zones, possibly what the costs are going to be for certain businesses or residential areas. But what if we just approve the MSR SOI and not the annexation?
So that is certainly an option for the commission to consider. I would, you know, that you are able to just approve the MSR SOI portion today, although they are, you know, very interrelated. So, you know, it would be possible to also just continue the entire item and bring the whole thing back. There really are multiple options available for consideration today. I would say just from a processing time frame, we have been working on an expedited schedule with the applicant from the standpoint of extending the parcel taxes over the annexation area in order for that to be implemented by the next fiscal year. We would need to file with the State Board of Equalization by December 1st. So we are already at pretty quick turnaround timeframes for meeting that timeline. So, you know, it certainly is up to the commission which option to move forward. But from the context of timing, you know, we are on an expedited schedule regardless of what decision is made.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Further commissioner or public comments? Matt, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So with this annexation of the city limits within into the Ukiah Valley Fire District or Ukiah Valley Fire Authority, the two areas have fairly different ISO ratings. With them being a blended department now, would that affect the ISO rating for the citizens of the city of Ukiah? Because that could be an extreme cost set over the citizens that are currently enjoy a 3, I believe is what the city has.
You're correct.
Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, sorry. You're correct that there are 2 different ratings right now. The most recent ratings we got, I think, maybe a month, maybe 60 days ago, but they were based entirely on the combined service of the JPA. So that would not be affected. The largest thing affecting the city versus the fire district is water systems and the availability of water. So what you would probably see at that point under a single entity would be that they would go to a 3-3X. The X is the replacement for the old 9 when they'd go to an 8, 8B, 9, familiar with that rating system.
Right.
So there should be no change to the ISO rating for the city because it's based on the city's water system, the same amount of people that we have today.
And I would like to extend that
additional
answer.
staffing.
Excuse me. Both the city of Willits and Brook Trails, the Little Lake Fire, and in Fort Bragg and their district is similar operational advantages by having instant mutual aid agreements in the ISO rating. You can then count the combined equipment and manpower to achieve a better ISO rating.
Well, both of those were already considered within the city's ISO, so that's not necessarily all that relevant to quite this topic.
Okay.
And then, oh, I can't remember my last question. I'm going to go ahead and cede the floor to somebody else. Sorry, I lost my train.
And public, is there any further public comments during this public hearing? Any further commissioner comments or questions? I'm not seeing any, so I believe we can close the public hearing.
Jerry has one. Jerry has a comment.
Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Actually, a question maybe for, I guess for staff. I was gonna say Uma, but Uma may not be the one that has it. On these questions regarding the tax or whatever that are still pending, would we have that at some sort of protest hearing in the future? I saw that there's a potential dates out there. Would that be a question that could be answered, at least to some approximation?
So,
excuse me, go ahead.
I apologize,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Martha.
Chair. So we will not have any additional information for the protest hearing. And I wanted to just explain a little bit more our understanding of how the taxation works. Because the taxing is not just a flat rate, it is based on units of benefit assessment. Basically the implementation, if approved, would require the agency to go out and probably hire a consultant to do that ground truthing of which benefit units apply on a parcel by parcel basis. It was estimated in working with a consultant that endeavor would cost approximately $10,000. So we moved forward with an estimate, which does include a broad range, a minimum and a maximum end of the scale of what may be accomplished through that benefit assessment allocation. I also want to note that through the process, we originally, as I mentioned early in the presentation, there is a overlap area between the city and the district, approximately 1,000 parcels. And it was considered early on in the process that overlap area was already within that assessment area for the special taxes by the district. Through the process, we discovered that area is not currently being taxed. So I would imagine that those numbers in the range of $850,000 to $1 million would probably be on the higher end of that spectrum in the context of that overlap area needing to be included. So, as I said, we will not have additional information for the protest hearing. And, there are pretty significant both cost and time requirements associated with actually getting to the fine-tuned level of producing that high quality data.
Thank you.
I would recommend the commission come back in 2 years with a report, should we go forward with the 3 recommended actions, so that both the governance and the benefit economics can be presented on the record and added to this record. That would be, I think, 2 years. You'll have an election through that period of time. So with that, any further? Yes, Matt.
I remembered, Chair. Sorry about that. And I'm sorry to be taking so much time with this, but it is a critical area of service within our sphere. The report states that there's only a perceived or expected increase of 0.5% of population within the Ukiah Valley Fire District's area currently. On the fill out, on the finishing of the building and the fill out of the homes in the new structure that's on the old Sarnas property, as well as the newer apartments on the Brush Street Triangle, both of those, between those two, they'll far exceed that 300 plus number that's actually in That's actually in the report. That's notwithstanding anything else that's being built within the district. Can we really can we rely on those numbers? I mean, I realize that that it's been put forward as a historical number and the way that the county has grown in the past, but things are not the same right now in the county as they have been in the past. And there's a very large proposed construction project there just north of the Ukiah Valley Fire Authority's main station, hundreds and hundreds of homes. So how accurate do we really think those numbers actually are? For anybody.
I will go first, and then I'm sure Doug can add additional, the fire chief can add additional information. So generally speaking, we applied a similar population projection methodology that we do for all the other studies. And so I would say that as you have explained, you probably have a much closer hand on the pulse of growth in the Ukiah Valley area at a development level. But we don't necessarily get to that level of granular data in the studies. We usually are just looking at population projection numbers based on, the census information, Department of Finance, or, really in this case, we looked at population projection. That 5.5% annual growth rate was based on Department of Transportation at the state level. So it is, a higher, looking at population projection maybe at a higher level than getting to the specific level that you're speaking of. But that is consistent with how we have approached other studies in the past.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Chair, I don't really have anything to add to that other than to agree with, Commissioner Fronenberg. We are aware of a couple of larger housing developments that are proposed, but we haven't actually seen come across our desk yet for fire prevention. So, yeah, I agree that it's probably going to go up more than that. I think that just is more emphasis on the need to enhance the services being provided.
Chief Hutchinson, I would just make a comment back with a combined annexation area. Would it be the intent of fire services to do a nexus study on new developments similar to what Hopland went through to capture capital costs?
Chair, yes, it would be. It's something we've discussed since my arrival here a couple of years ago. The district currently does have a mitigation fee that was many, many years ago. So yes, we have discussed updating that to address newer impacts throughout the service area.
Thank you. Further questions from commissioners?
I just have one more comment, if that's possible, so I can finish up.
Absolutely, please.
I realize that I've come across relatively critical of this, but it's because it's an important thing, and I am fairly critical of this. The original JPA was questionable in my mind, to me, and I do not want that to reflect on my feelings towards the folks that are on the ground, the line staff and the rank and file. You guys do a great job. I know firsthand exactly what you have to do and exactly what you have to deal with on a daily basis. So kudos on the good job and working with what I might consider a flawed system and doing the best that you can with what you have. That's what firemen do. So firefighters, sorry, that was a bad gaffe. So anyways, thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. And please pass that along to your staff.
Further comments, questions, public or commissioners? Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, I was waiting to the very end, but Uma, how did you structure the cost on this? I noticed there hasn't been a whole lot on the work plan, and the work plan would be the MSR SOI, but there has been some costs for the annexation, but how did you allocate those costs?
We did bill the preparation of the MSR to the work plan and the partial cost to the sphere update. And then as part of the application included a sphere amendment. So that was a shared cost with the work plan for the sphere update portion of the preparation of the MSR.
Okay. I was just curious because it just didn't seem equitable when you presented the claim. So thanks. That's all I had, Tony.
Thank you, commissioners. Are there any further questions, comments out there by public or commissioners? Then we will close the public hearing at 10:05. And we have 3 recommended actions today. We have to make a finding on the CEQA exemption. And we have 2 resolutions to adopt, and they should be adopted with any changes of the memo of record that has come forward to make any corrections. So I'm looking first for the motion on the finding the Ukiah Valley Fire District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update and UVFD Fire Services Annexation and Fire District Sphere Amendment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Move the recommended action.
Seconded by Ignacio.
Motion made and seconded, and I'll open it for discussion of members of the public and commissioners. Just raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Umo, do you wish to make a presentation, or Larkin, on this item?
Nothing further from staff.
And I see no hands raised, so I'll ask Clerk Meadows to, Matt, please.
Yes, Chair, could we separate these 3 items and not have them as just a single item? Or is that what Commissioner Mulhern intended?
We are doing it one at a time.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just talking about CEQA now.
Agreed.
Correct.
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 Thank you.
Clerk Meadows, call the roll.
Yes, Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Clerk Meadows.
Mr. Chair, I have a clarifying question for you.
Please,
Don't
go
mind.
ahead.
Did you want to have the additional 2-year analysis that you mentioned brought for item 2 or item 3? Because I had moved the recommended action with the addition of that for whichever item you wanted that on.
I believe it's it's basically general questions of the combined agency after annexation, and that is to update us on governance and also the benefit charges net throughout the newly formed district. And those
Mr.
2
Chair,
items, I think, yes, please,
may I make a suggestion?
please do.
I would suggest that the report back be included in the MSR SOI resolution because anything that we add of such a long time frame to the annexation resolution, we cannot close that process until that happens. And so I would recommend that it be included in the first resolution related to the MSR SOI update.
Thank you for that. Would you recommend that would be a whereas?
I would recommend it as one of the, after the determinations, orders, and findings section. And essentially we could add that. Let me look really quick. So they're actually not numbered, but I think we could add it after the as part of the determination to approve the MSR SOI. Let me find the specific page first.
It's on page 107 and 108 of the packet.
Thank you, Uma. Okay, so I would recommend it as I would include it as item 3 and bumping down all the additional items under the now therefore statements, the resolves, determinations, and orders. So number 1 is CEQA and number 2 is CEQA. So I would make that as a requirement under number 3. And then 3 through 6 would become 4 through 7.
Without modification, I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution 2021-2202 as modified by Larkin here today. Yes, Mo.
I'll make that motion, but I think Commissioner Ignacio had his hand up first.
Scott?
I make that motion, Tony, to amend the exemption that was just approved as presented.
Okay, that's the motion. And Mo, would you like to second that?
I sure would. Thank you for asking.
So we now have a motion on the floor for the resolution passage and discussion, please, by commissioners and the public. Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone requesting a comment at this time. Then let's go ahead with the roll call. Clerk Meadows?
Okay, Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fronberger,
No.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes, thank you, clerk. With that, we move to our final action item as part of this process. And this is to adopt resolution 2021-2203, conditionally approving the UVFD Fire Services annexation and fire district sphere amendment. This is file number 8/2021-02 and a change of organization application to annex the city limits of the city of Ukiah for fire services. I'll open for a motion.
I'll move the recommended action. Mulhern.
Thank you.
McGorty seconds it.
We have a motion and a second. I open for discussion by commissioners and or the public. Please raise your hand. Yes, Commissioner Ward.
I'll support it. I just think this is being rushed too much. But I'm looking forward maybe to see what the protest hearing comes up. I hope that we have more information, but it doesn't sound like it. But I think it's just a little rushed right now. I think the SOI MSR is fine, but I reluctantly will vote yes.
Any further comments, questions, members of the public or commissioners? Yes, Matt.
I would echo Mr. Ward's comments, except for the fact that I cannot support it at this time. I think that we are pushing it a little too fast, and we need to work on our own time schedule and make sure that everything's done thoroughly and not in fast forward.
Thank you for that comment. Of course, sometimes we've been commented that we move way too slow. So, I mean, it comes at us from both directions. And with that, I'll call for the roll call. Clerk Meadows?
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner Fronberger,
No.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Meadows. And thank you, Commission and staff. Thank you so much. I think the fire services will breathe a slight sigh of relief that they're moving forward. We are in exceptional times, and joint mutual aid operations throughout the county is very much appreciated by all the fire agencies here in Mendocino. And this is an example of creating some level of efficiencies, and there will be the protest hearing moving forward. So the process moves forward. Commissioner Ignacio, please.
Just for the public, can we have a clarification on the result of resolution 2021-22-02, please, just for the record?
Yes. Clerk Meadows? The A's and the I's. The A's and the no's.
Oh, are you talking about the, I'm sorry, asking for clarification about the resolution itself or about the vote on the resolution?
Well, how the resulting vote, just wanted to make sure that was the resolution we voted on. We had a finding and then an adopt and adopt.
Yes, there was, Frohnberger was the lone no.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move on. There are no workshop items today.
Chair
So we'll
Orth,
move on. Yes.
if I may, I think it might be good to give a brief summary of the next steps in this application process. And if the commission is open to that.
Please go ahead and address it.
Larkin, would you like to give a brief overview of the protest hearing and the next steps?
Certainly. So the next step is a noticed protest hearing, and that's a minimum 21-day public notice that goes out, and we are required to mail that notice to landowners within the Ukiah city limits. The way that this works is a written protest is required to be submitted by the close of the protest hearing. And then the commission will consider the value of those written protests. And essentially how it works is that if protest is less than 25%, the commission approval stands. If protest is more than 25%, then a vote of the people follows. And if protest exceeds 50%, then the proposal is terminated. And generally speaking, proposals cannot be resubmitted for a year following such a termination. And then there also is a distinction in LAFCO law between the calculations for registered voters, and then there's a different calculation for landowners, which is based on the percent of the landowners who own a percent of the assessed value within the affected territory. And those are two separate calculations, so they are not combined for the resulting protest thresholds that we consider as a result of that protest hearing.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there any questions or comments upon that clarification? All right, there being none, and thank you, Uma, for bringing that forward. We have no workshop items, so our next item is item 7, matters for discussion and possible action. 7A is ratification of an out-of-agency water service agreement for the city of Fort Bragg, and I'll turn this over to staff for the presentation.
Thank you, Chair Orth. This item is the ratification of an administrative conditional approval issued on September 16th for out-of-agency water service agreements between the city of Fort Bragg and 2 residential parcels located within the city's sphere of influence. The parcels are located on Minnesota Avenue and had depended on private wells until they failed earlier this summer. There are a number of other parcels on this road already receiving water from the city, and the pipeline will be necessarily upsized from 4 to 6 inches to accommodate these additional services. The city approved the extensions of water service pending LAFCO approval which was considered administratively under policy 12.2.4, addressing urgent circumstances per health and safety. The policy states that administrative determinations are ratified by the commission at the next meeting. Consistent with policy 12.2.6, conditions of approval were included that require the landowners to submit a recorded consent agreement to annex into the city if initiated in the future. The executive officer's approval and the consent forms are located in your agenda packet starting on page 173. Staff recommendations are located on page 158 of your packet and are to adopt a resolution ratifying the conditional approval and finding the project exempt from CEQA. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, questions from commissioners and the public, please raise your hand. Commissioner Gonzalez, please.
I think I pushed the button too soon. I was just going to move if we had no other comment.
Questions from the public or commissioners? Commissioner Ward. You're muted. You're
Thank
muted.
you.
There you go.
I wasn't muted before. So are there any other ones that we're going to be hit with in the future besides these two wells? And my second question is it always going to be a $500 fee?
I'll answer the second question first. Under our policies, we have a range from $500 to $2,500 for out of area service agreement applications. We've been accepting a $500 deposit to cost. Both of them are a deposit to cost. For the administrative review and approval, anything over the 5 hours of staff time would be billed to the applicant. As far as the first question, we're not aware of any additional water service applications coming forward in the near future, although we have had an initial request to consider out of agency for sewer service, and that will be reviewed in the coming month.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Yes, Glenn, please.
Yeah, so knowing a little bit about the water conditions in Fort Bragg, it seems like long-term extending service is something that could be very useful to that community. And I hope that the city of Fort Bragg is looking at that. They'll have to build their capacity for water storage, as most of the coast will, but that whole area south of Highway 20, which is out of city limits, is very water insecure, and having the potential for centralized water service there would be really, really useful in the future.
Thank you, Glenn. I would note that the city of Fort Bragg is installing, as we speak, a desalination plant, which will make low flow Noyo River water available for processing, and that will be an increase on their water resiliency program. Commissioner comments? Any public comments? Anyone waiting to speak to the commission on this? We have a resolution before us. Is there a separate CEQA exemption we need to move on first? Uma?
We have included it both in the resolution, the single resolution.
Yes, I see that. I just wanted to be assured of that. So we're looking at resolution, and Jerry, I'll get right to you. Resolution number 2021-22-04. And Commissioner Gonzalez, go ahead.
Just want to move staff's recommendation.
Second, Mulhern.
Okay, further comments from commissioners or the public? I'm seeing no hands. So this is resolution 2021-22-04, and Clerk Meadows, go ahead and hold the roll call.
Right. Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes, and thank you,
The motion
staff.
passes unanimously.
Any follow-up comments or questions by anybody here? With that, then we'll move on to 7B, which is an update on LAFCO's role in drought emergency and out-of-agency water transfers, and I'll turn that over to Uma.
Thank you, Chair Orth. This is starts on page 189 of your agenda packet. During the September 13th commission meeting, the commission heard a presentation on the countywide drought emergency coordination efforts to support areas most affected by the drought, most immediately our coastal communities. A mutual aid agreement has been established between the county and the cities of Ukiah and Fort Bragg to provide hauled water from Ukiah to Fort Bragg. The water is then distributed as needed from Fort Bragg. Those deliveries started in mid-September and continue to ramp up. Staff also provided an overview on LAFCO regulations regarding out-of-agency service provision, including discussions among LAFCOs around the state, and requested commission direction on Mendocino LAFCO's role in the current situation. A number of options were also developed and presented to the commission for discussion, which were then delegated to the Executive Committee for Development. The Executive Committee met on September 23rd to discuss the options and hear public comment, and directed legal counsel and staff to do additional research on the applicability of Government Code Section 56133 that deals with out-of-agency service agreements, and development of a policy to the Policies and Procedures Committee. We will be working with the committee to schedule that meeting within the next week. And that concludes my presentation. This is just an informational report at this point, and no action is requested from the commission.
Thank you, Uma. Yes, indeed. The executive committee did give comments to staff, and we've directed this to the policies committee. So further discussion will occur. And Commissioner McGorty, please.
So I just wanted to add to that the County of Mendocino did receive a $2 million emergency grant from the Division of Drinking Water from the California State Water Resources Control Board. And the board also decided to allow Ukiah to use their pre-1914 water right to supply the city of Fort Bragg with water from the surface. So those are two other developments that have occurred. So we're pretty committed, and so far the program is working fairly well.
Thank you for that added information. Further discussion or comments? Questions? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Public members, please, if you have questions, raise your hand and we'll recognize you. All right, Uma, well, thank you for that report, and work will continue on developing any policy needed by LAFCO in response. Okay, next item is 7C, which is a proposed special meeting. And I'll turn this over to Uma to present the need for the meeting.
Thank you. The staff is requesting the commission schedule a special meeting the second week of November for the purpose of holding the protest hearing for the Ukiah Valley Fire District's application. In order for us to make that Board of Equalization December 1st submission deadline, we'll need to hold the protest hearing as soon as possible after the 30-day reconsideration period. The suggested dates are somewhat different from the ones in your agenda packet. We are suggesting either Monday, November 8th, or Wednesday, November 10th at either 10 o'clock in the morning or 1 in the afternoon. I will note, just for information, that November 8th is the day after the daylight savings time change, and that November 10th is the day before Veterans Day. So staff is requesting that we schedule that meeting.
I'll open up for commissioner comments. Public comments, please raise your hand. Any comments on preference of date? It's a Monday and a Wednesday in the same week. Commissioner Ignacio, go ahead.
I support getting this done as soon as possible. So, but I'm available for either day, but Monday at 10 would be my recommendation. I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission, sorry.
Yes, Commissioner Farnberger, go ahead.
I agree with Commissioner Ignacio. Let's move forward.
And Supervisor Glenn, Commissioner Glenn.
Yes, absolutely. Monday.
Monday it is. Jerry.
Yes, regarding the Assembly Bill 361, we're going to have to redo a resolution. Is the timing good on this to just also add that resolution to the agenda?
We do have a regular meeting scheduled for November 1st, so we will have to adopt a resolution on that date.
Okay, that's right. We do have one the first. All right, thanks.
Okay.
It's a good question.
So I think we've given staff notice that let's go ahead and schedule for November 8th, which is the Monday at 10 a.m. Glenn, your hand is still up.
I didn't take it down.
Okay, so you have no further comment. Any public comments on this? There's no motion necessary, I believe. We can just direct staff because there's plenty of time to agendize and public notice, correct?
Yes, we will have time to do the public noticing, and we'll be working this week to get the mailing out for the protest hearing.
Excellent, and thank you for all your work. And with that, we'll move to agenda item 8, information and report items, starting with 8A, which is the work plan and future proposals. Go ahead to staff. Uma.
Thank you. I did see that Commissioner Ward had his hand up.
Well, I was just trying to get some clarification. We're having a special meeting on November 4th, did you say? Is that the date?
November 8th.
November 8th, but we're having a regular meeting on the 1st.
Correct.
We can't do the protest hearing. It's not within the 30 days. It's too short.
Correct. It's too short, shorter time frame.
All right. And I'm not trying to get out of meetings. I'm just trying to minimize meetings. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for, I didn't see his hand up. So thank you for that. And we'll go back to now the work plan on 8A.
Thank you. We have a few updates on the list of proposals that haven't already been covered today. I can report that the auditor and assessor have provided the tax rate area information to affected agencies for Ukiah's application to annex the city-owned properties. So that process appears to be moving forward. And we have briefly touched bases with the city on the remaining outstanding items for the incomplete letter on that application. There's no change to the potential future proposals on the list. So I will jump down to the work plan, and there is a summary of the work plan on starting on page 195. With today's action, we've completed the 2 work plan tasks for this fiscal year, including the Ukiah Valley Fire District, MSR Spear update, and the report for the Covelo Community Services District as well. We anticipate an administrative draft of CSA 3 in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be coordinating with the county to discuss next steps and information needs for that report. We'll also be reaching out to the city of Ukiah and the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District again to continue the conversation on getting those 2 projects started. And I don't have anything further on this report unless there are questions.
Open to questions, please raise your hand and question away, comments. I'm saying none. Jerry.
Yeah, I just want to have a follow-up. In our minutes, it says that after we approve the Covelo CSD, that there will be some updated financial information, and then there may be some update on the census. I just wanted to make sure before we find that and put it into our system that it's complete. I was wondering if you had additional information to put in that. Because there was some financial information. So to my opinion, it was a couple of, maybe a page or two missing.
Thank you for that reminder. We will have to double check that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's
Any
all I have.
further
Thank you.
questions or comments on the work plan or future proposals? All right, seeing none, we'll move to 8B, which is correspondence. Any correspondence to report, Uma?
None to report that has not been already provided.
Thank you. Then we'll go to 8C, CALFCO Business and Legislative Report, and I'll turn this over to staff.
Thank you. As a reminder, the CALFCO business meeting and board meeting will be held on Thursday and Friday of this week. The meeting materials for those meetings have been forwarded to all the commissioners by email, and commissioners are encouraged to attend. CALFCO is working to provide the conference sessions virtually, and the first one is scheduled for this Friday, and it's titled Infrastructure and Cybersecurity. The session is free to CALFCO members, so all commissioners and staff from Mendocino LAFCO can attend that, register and attend. And it's also open to others with a registration fee. So we provided the information to our member agencies, and the session flyer is on page 198 of your packet. I will note that registration is required by close of business tomorrow. Also, the California Special Districts Association provided an implementation guide for AB 361, and that is included in your packet on page 199. And the CALFCO legislative report starts on page 210. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions on CALFCO or the special district items? All right, seeing none, then we'll go to Executive Officer's report. Executive Officer Hinman, please make your report.
Thank you. Based on our situation, kind of on the front line of the drought emergency, I've been invited to sit on a panel for an upcoming CALFCO webinar called Throw Out the Historic Water Framework, What Do LAFCOs Do Now? The panel will also include the Assistant Deputy Director of the Water Board and a Merced LAFCO County Commissioner. That is expected to be scheduled for sometime in December. Also, we continue to work on preparing the year-end financials and hope to have them to Treasurer Award by mid-month. Staff time has been taken up with the application that we heard today, so I do apologize for the delay on that. And I don't have anything else to report at this time.
Any questions or comments by commissioners or the public? Please raise your hand. Commissioner Ward.
Yes, one more thing, Uma, that I forgot to ask you about was the update on the Sustainable Land Grant update you were going to give to us. I know you didn't meet, but how's that going?
That project is wrapping up at the end of this year. We do have a meeting at 1 o'clock today, and I will add a discussion item to our November 1st agenda, giving an update on that project and a status. But LAFCO's role will be to help schedule an informational meeting with the public, and so I'll be working with folks on that, and then also to finalize some fact sheets for inclusion on the SAUC Sustainable Ag Lands Committee website.
So it looks like we might save about $2,000 in our budget that we won't have to spend.
Well, that project is a grant-funded project, so there is no impact to our budget. We will not utilize all of the grant funds that have been allocated to us.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments or questions to the executive officer today? Then we'll move on to commissioner reports, comments or questions.
Can we go to Commissioner Fromberger, please?
Excuse excuse me, committee reports. And I didn't see you, you had your hand raised. Okay, please. go
Yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to thank our executive officer and her staff. They've done a wonderful job with this meeting. It's one huge packet. I do appreciate all the hard work and the legwork, and it's very well noticed, and I appreciate your time and effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would repeat that myself. We are on committee reports. So the executive committee did meet on the one item that has already been reported on. So I'll open it to any. I don't believe any of the other committees have met in the last 30 days.
So you don't want my report?
I do not. It's been
Okay.
made by our EO today because it was just a single item. And as you know, we've passed it on to policies and procedures for further action. So with that, we'll move to
Yep.
Commissioner. Yes.
To go along with that, do we have a plan for the Policies and Procedures Committee to meet? And should we do that now or offline?
I
We'll be
believe
re-
Uma was going to schedule that with you over the next week, correct, Uma?
We have to complete our research on our end, and we'll be reaching out this week to the committee members to get that scheduled. Thank you, Commissioner Frohnberger.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Then we'll go to commissioner reports. Comments or questions open to any commissioner, please just raise your hand and I will recognize you. Okay. I will just note that Brook Trails did forward our application for the reuse of sewer water to potable water standards. And so that project is moving forward in our district. Any commissioners have any further questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Oh, excuse me. EO Hindman, go ahead.
Well, I'm not a commissioner, but I did want to thank the commission because it's clear that you all actually did read the packet, and we greatly appreciate that as staff. So I wanted to just make that note. Thank you.
Okay, without any further ado, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Yes, Matt.
Frohnberger will motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And there's no need for a second. And so we are thus adjourned. Thank you all for coming today and participating.